Hello team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prabh, and today we're going to discuss about how to prepare for CGRC. CGRC is a new certification from ISC2. It is like a revamped version of a CAP and seemed to be a new course which is aligned with a JRC analyst kind of a skill based program. I did this certification in 2023 December, and in this particular video I'm sharing the entire insight about this particular course. I do not find any video which talk about such details, so I thought let me take this initiative and make the video on the CGRC. I can assure you one thing that based on this video, at least you will get a 30 to 40% of a visibility, and rest of the thing you can basically get from the document which I'm sharing in this particular video. My name is Prabh Nair. For more information, you can check my LinkedIn profile. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so when you're talking about this certification, this is certification stand for ISC2 Governance, Risk and Compliance. And when you're talking about CGRC, it is ideal for the IT, information security and assurance practitioner who work in the GRC role and need to understand and apply how to implement risk management program governance in the IT system within the organization. Let me give an example. See, if you take an example of any implementation part and all that, okay, we basically start with first is basically governance. Okay, first we start with the governance where we talk about strategy, controls. Then we basically talk about the risk function, how to do the risk assessment to prioritize the control, and then we basically ensure we compliance with the function. So when we're talking about any organization, we start with the risk assessment, strategy, building controls, implementation of a controls, assessing the controls, and then we prepare the entire organization for a certification. CGRC basically cover all those elements. It basically start with how to understand the business requirement, how to interpret the business requirement, how to create a risk management strategy, how to set the risk appetite, then slowly and gradually move to the system level, how to categorize the system, how to classify the system, then how to baseline the control, how to implement the control, how to assess the control, how to assess the level of control, and then prepare the report and do the further monitoring. So it talk about end-to-end entire function. Okay, so that is the best thing. And when you're talking, and now who can do this certification? Okay, so when you're talking about if you are into the IT and you want to make a career in GRC, for them CGRC can be a best certification. If you are an auditor, you are a security consultant, you want a further knowledge how to implement governance management system in the organization, this is a good certification for them. But before going for this certification, I highly recommend you to have a very good understanding of ISO 27001, okay, or high level understanding about the governance. This is my recommendation, okay. So when you're talking about the CGRC, it actually demonstrates that you have a expert knowledge, skill and experience to manage the risk, authorize and maintain the information system with the various framework. And more important, it also used to verify your ability to evaluate the risk, establish the security prerequisite, and also generate the comprehensive documentation utilizing a various security framework. But if you ask me, the origin of the CGRCs come from a CAP, okay. So CAP was the initial certification, okay, and they have revamped into CGRC. So what I can see the current content of CGRC, it is more aligned with the NIST, okay. So if you are from a US working for the DoD and all that, then this certification is a mandatory criteria before CISSP, because this certification is particularly beneficial for the US government people who are responsible for overseeing the information system security in the Department of Defense and fulfill their particular criteria called DoD 8570. Additionally, the one who doing the certification or who planning for the certification, the individual in the private sector who handle the risk management also find this credential valuable, whereby which he can able to demonstrate understanding and alignment of business objective with risk management and regulatory compliance. So if you're preparing for this particular certification, one of the important document you have to refer is NIST 837. Exactly, the new risk framework, which is called 2.0 837. So your content is basically more aligned with that particular function. or you can say syllabus, the current syllabus of CGRC is more aligned with the 837. The CGRC going to be revamped from a June 15. Okay. And what I believe that, okay, the new content is more on a generic governance framework. Instead of they're talking about only NIST 837, but it will be very generic framework. But I believe what I can see the content, 70% of a content, 70 to 80% of the content is basically same. The only thing is that the current content is more influenced based on the NIST 837 R2, which is a 2.0 of risk management framework. And the new content will basically cover the generic of the risk management function. Okay. So I received a lot of queries, Prabh, how this certification is different from CISSP, CSAM and CRIS. So let me share one comparison table which give you more insight about this particular program. So now there is a question regarding, Prabh, how this certification different from others. So if you take example of CISSP basically cover the very comprehensive 8 domain of the information security. Okay. It talk about starting with the information security fundamental, then it talk about the SDLC. So the one who working in the information security and tomorrow he want to lead CISO kind of a profile and need to handle multiple kind of a domain queries and all that, for them the CISSP is a good because it cover your information security, cyber security and overall governance. And that's what the target audience for that is security professional leaders. And once you're done with CISSP, in order to claim the certificate, you need to show 5 years of experience in any 2 domain. The exam from the April 2024, it will be reduced to 3 hours with 150 questions. And exam format is multiple choice. 3 year is there. 745 is the price. The popularity is there, and it is somehow overlap with the content of CSAM, CISA and CRISC. Now coming to the GRC, it is for the professional leaders. See, I'm in this video, I'm not questioning someone's skill. See, the one who come from a suppose auditor background, auditor. Okay, anyone who come from an auditor background, he is a financial auditor, quality analyst and all that. For him, clearing CISSP is tough challenge because CISSP has a core security principles. We talk about security governance. Okay, so when talking about any organization, we have a governance here, and then we have an enterprise governance, and then we have a IT, and then we have a information security. So CISSP cover information security, how to implement information security in the organization. Understood? But CGRC cover the enterprise governance, how to implement enterprise governance in the organization. So if you are an auditor, I'm not talking about IT auditor, I'm talking about the non-IT auditor, financial analyst. Okay, or you are basically IT professional. You want to make a career in audits, you want to make a career in GRC, then CGRC can be easy for you. But CISSP is not easy for you because in CISSP you literally need to go through technical and governance area. So CGRC is basically for those people who want to build process, who want to do risk assessment, who want to implement the control, who can be act like a subject matter expert to implement the controls in the organization. Understood? So that is the thin line difference. And when you see the CGRC, it's basically cover 2 years of experience is required in order to claim the certificate, 3 hours of exam with 180 minutes, multiple choice, 599. It is emerging definitely because it was last year was introduced. But when it comes to CSAM is the certification from ISACA. So domain 1 and domain 7 of CISSP, if you club that, it is basically become a CISM. So CISM is more like an information security lead kind of a position. If you are a CISO, you want to know how the information security program works in the organization. You are a CIO, you want to know the holistic view of information security governance, then you go for CISM. There's a detailed video I made on YouTube, the thin line difference between CISSP, CSAM. So you can say CSAM is a certification of ISACA, which is an alternate of CISSP. So that is there. Then we have a CRISC certification. CRISC is basically for the risk management. So you join a banking industry or financial industry. So you want to lead the position of CRO, Chief Risk Officer. You want to implement enterprise risk management in the organization. So CRISC is basically a certification for that. So CSAM and CRISC is basically from ISACA, and CISSP and CGRC is basically from IC2 or IC2. Now, if you can see the hierarchy, suppose we have a CISO here. Okay, so we have a CISO here. Okay, and we have a CIO here. Okay, now under the CISO, we have a risk consultant. Example, we have a security consultant. Okay, we have an auditor also sometime. I'm talking about not internal audit, normal auditor. Okay, so if the auditor want to enhance his skills, he do CISA. Okay, if risk consultant want to learn how to do risk management, how to build risk management function in the organization, he do CRISC. Okay, and if someone want to do core security consulting activities and all that, he will do CISSP or CISM, which is basically part of security consultant. And CISSP also for CISO, because tomorrow we have a IDM team, we have a security assessment team, we have an application security team. They basically reach out to CISO. So he should be in the position to give them an idea. So CISSP will basically benefit him because he get a holistic view of all the 8 domain. But if you go for CISM, it will not give him the holistic view. CISM will done by CISO because he want to involve only in building strategy and building program. That's it. Now, when it comes to CGRC, now CGRC is what is, it's a combination of audit, risk consulting and security consulting, but it is high level. And also it includes how to build governance. Understood? So you came from IT, you want to know how to implement the process. Okay, so building a process, based on that we build the strategy and then define the controls. This is what you're going to learn in CGRC. Then on top of it, security consultant is there, risk management is there, CISO is there, who will ensure that. So your role is to create a process. You understood? That's the thin line difference. Okay. Hope you get a visibility. So when you're talking about CGRC, it basically impartial to specific vendor because it doesn't talk about a particular vendor. It basically talk about the cybersecurity knowledge, your expertise, capability in authorizing, managing information system. Information system is all about people, process and technology. So it verify your proficiency, creating a formal procedure for risk assessment, and more important, complying with the security documentation. That is why we say to qualify for the cybersecurity certification CGRC, you must pass the exam and at least you have to demonstrate 2 years of work experience in the 7 domains. Out of 7 domains, we have a 7 domain in CGRC in which you need to show 2 years of experience in any 1 domain or 2 domain. Now, when we're talking about CGRC, the length of exam is 3 hours. The number of questions is 125. Item format is multiple choice. Passing grade is 700 out of 1000. But there is a twist. In the 125 questions, okay, 25 questions are research based. Okay, I think 25 questions are research based. Okay, so out of 100 or that is the validations we have. And if you want to pass this exam, you need to score 700 out of 1000. Okay, so that is the most important part we have that we need to understand. There's no way to go back. Once you move from question number 1 to question number 2, you cannot go back. You cannot come back. So that is another important thing you need to understand. So but it is not a CAT based exam. CAT based exam basically mean, based on the current question, you will get a next question. It's not like that. Okay, so time is not an enemy because my session is at 50 questions, 50 minutes, 10 minutes break, 50 questions, 50 minutes, 10 minutes break. So in 120 minutes, you had done with 100 questions. So you're left with another 60 minutes in which you need to do the 25 questions. So time is not an enemy. Okay, so that's something you have to check. So let's move to the next part. So as you know, when you're talking about the ISC2 content, it always organized in a form of domain. So in CGRC, we have 7 domains. Domain 1 is information security risk management program. 16% of the content is testable from the domain 1. Scope of the information system, selections and approval of security and privacy control, implementation of security and privacy control 16%, assessment audit of security privacy control, authorization and continuous monitoring. Okay, now if you understand the domain 1 information security risk management program, in this you need to know the high level overview about what is information security, how information security works. You need to know the high level understanding about the purpose of COBIT, purpose of 27001. I highly recommend you can review the ISO 27001 high level. And in this particular section, we also going to discuss about what is NIST and all that. Along with that, what is SDLC? Okay, how to do the scoping, what is the security controls, roles and responsibility of different people, okay, risk management process, privacy requirement in the risk management. If you're planning to outsource the service to third party, how to ensure the security and understand the legal regulatory requirement. Everything is basically covered in the domain 1. Because if you ask me the hierarchy, it will be like this way. Let me explain you. So it basically start with first what you called understand the risk management program, high level. Then based on that, do the implementation of a risk management program. Okay, and then we basically talk about the final part, which is called understand the legal regulatory requirement, where you need to have a high level understanding about FISMA. FISMA is very important because it is used, it is an act which is used in a Department of Defense. to protect the digital data and all that. The FISMA is very important, FISMA Act, and it is very, very important to know the FedRAMP, especially their authorization process. So that is also very important. And you also need to know high level how the ISO 27000 works. So that is basically part of the domain 1. Now, once we understand the legal requirement, when we understand the risk management, we basically move to the domain 2, which is called scoping, because if you want to protect the data, you need to scope the data, you need to scope the systems. So in this, we discuss about architecture, data flow, and we also discuss about how to classify. So FIPS 199, there is a standard which is used to categorize the system, very, very important. And how to do assessment, okay, FIPS, CNSSI. So all those things are basically very important. So you can say like that domain 1 talk about understanding the legal regulatory requirement, adopting the risk management, and domain 2 talk about creating a boundary and categorize a system. Once you basically categorize a system, very, very important for you to understand domain 3. If you're going for this exam, make sure you should have a very good understanding about how to do scoping and how to do tailoring of the baseline. Okay, so in my further slide, I'm going to discuss that. Okay. So in domain 3, the most important topic in selection and approval of security control we have is you need to have very good understanding of baseline control and inherent controls. I repeat, you need to have very good understanding of baseline controls and inherent controls. Inheritance. Okay. So it's very important. And how to select and tailor the controls. Okay. What is the security practice? Okay. What is the continuous monitoring strategy? How to assess the controls and how to review and approve the ISMS. That is basically part of the domain 3. Now coming to the back, discuss about domain 4, implementation of security and privacy control. In this domain, we're going to discuss about GDPR, very, very important. GDPR, data controller, data processor, very important for you to understand. How to identify compensating control. What is compensating control? That is basically very important. Privacy controls. Okay. And we also talk about the security assessment plan. Everything is basically part of the domain 4. After anything which is domain, so domain 1 is very, very important. Domain 3 is very, very important. And domain 4 and 5 is very, very important. Now, when you're talking about domain 5, if you see the hierarchy, in first domain, we're going to discuss about governance. In domain 2, we're doing a risk assessment and scoping of the system and categorizing of the system. Once you categorize, you select the controls, and then in domain 4, we basically assess the control. Then we do the detailed level of assessment in domain 5. So in domain 5, we basically going to discuss about how to prepare the assessment, how to prepare the security assessment plan, how to conduct the audits, okay, and how to prepare the remediation plan. So that is basically part of a domain 5. Then we basically have a domain 6 where I will prepare the complete system with particular risk and everything. Risk treatment is very, very important. You should have a very good understanding about in which condition we accept the risk, in which condition we avoid the risk, in which condition we transfer the risk, in which condition we mitigate the risk, in which condition we share the risk. And also you need to have a very good understanding of the residual risk, because if you're talking about the domain 6, okay, in this domain, we're going to discuss about the authorization package. Okay, authorization package mean if management accept the product with, okay, that is called as an authorization. It means they're accepting all the risk associated with that. So you need to have a very good understanding about how to do the authorizations. So we have a different type of authorizations, and before authorization, they basically define the risk treatment. Okay, how to accept, how to transfer. So all those things need to be there. Then we finally have a domain 7, which is called as a continuous monitoring, where talking about the operation. So in this, we're going to discuss about patch management, change management, because now application is in the production. So we need to manage them. So change management, patch management, incident management, okay, then audit reports, audit review, continuously monitor the activity. So all those things is basically part of the domain 7. Okay. So yes, if you really want to pass this exam, domain 1 is very, very important. Domain 3, very, very important. Domain 4 is very important. Domain 5, very important. Domain 6, semi-important, but important. And domain 7 is very, very important. So this is basically the syllabus till June 14. After June 15, something date is there. If you see the date perspective and all that, if you go to the ISC2 website, after June 15, 2024, this is the new syllabus, where they basically talk about, you can say, security and privacy governance risk management compliance program. So they're basically moving from a NIST base to the generic base. Understood? So that is a one thing. They're talking about roles and responsibility. They're introducing a new concept about risk management compliance program process. And they're also talking about how to understand framework regulations and all that. Okay, 16% is there. The scoping is the same only. So scoping in this, the scoping is basically same. The only change is there is a syllabus change. I will make a different video on that. I will share the updated course content link in the description box. You can check that. Okay. So then we have a selection and approval of framework, security and privacy control, then implement, assessment, system compliance. They use a word called system compliance this time. They use the word called system compliance, in which they talk about third party assessment, how to determine the system risk posture, okay, how to document the system compliance, what is a format or formal notification of compliance decision, what is a formal notification shared with a stakeholder. Okay, so that is basically part of that system compliance. Then we have a compliance maintenance. Very good thing has been introduced here. So you can see like that, enhancing the domain 7 operation of continuous monitoring, they called it as a compliance maintenance here. So in compliance maintenance, they're talking about how to analyze the impact post-production, changes to systems, how to track that, what is the frequency to establish the ongoing compliance activity, okay, how to engage the audit activity based on a compliance requirement, how to decommission the system if it's not required. So that is basically there. So you can see that in new syllabus, system compliance, compliant maintenance, they have revamped this as a domain. Okay, and they're now talking more about from a compliance perspective. And compliance can be anything. It can be regulatory, legal, business, and all that. And major change they have introduced in a part 1 also by introducing a generic framework. Instead of just talking about NIST, they're now talking about a generic framework. So that is a very good thing, I believe. And I don't find any other course which talk about this in nature. So again, I'm telling you, this is not an information security certification. It is an enterprise governance certification which cover IT and information security risk, all three together. Is it clear? It also talk about how to implement privacy system also. Okay, so all those things is part of the function. So let's go detail discuss about the current syllabus. And one of the framework which is used in the current syllabus is risk management framework, and that we're going to discuss now in detail. So as I said, CGRC is basically based on the RMF. And if you actually follow NIST 837, you can able to implement the governance in the organization. And NIST 837, it's all about risk management framework, which has some steps, and you need to have a very good understanding about the steps. So in this video, in this part of the video, I'm also covering this particular process. So we have a steps. The first step is called as a prepare step. So purpose of prepare step is to basically carry out essential activity at the organization, mission and business process and information system level of the organization, which basically help to prepare the organization to manage its security and privacy risk by using a risk management framework. So prepare step is basically start with the organization level, and then it move to system level. Okay. So primary objective of prepare step is to give a facilitate the better communication between the senior leaders, it aligning the organization priorities with resource allocations. It also convey the acceptable limit, and more important, promote the organization wide identification of the common control, and also reduce the complexity of the IT infrastructure. So that is the primary. So you can say if you starting a RMF in the organization, we start with the prepare step where we need to collect the information, do the meetings and everything. Now once we basically done with the prepare step, the second is basically called as a categorize step. So purpose of categorize step is to inform the organization risk management process and tasks by determining the adverse impact to the organization operation and asset, individual and organization. And also we talk about the nations with respect to the loss of confidentiality, integrity, availability of the organization system and the information process stored and transmitted by those systems. Okay, so that is the purpose of categorization. So example, in risk assessment, we added in prepare step, we basically identify what is business and all that. In the categorize step, we basically try to categorize the system in such a way that we can able to maintain the security. So once you basically categorize the system, on that we need to implement the control. So we have a select phase. So select step is basically all about selecting the control, okay, and tailor the control and document the control, which is necessary to protect the information system and all that. And it also used to commensurate with the risk to the organization operation, assets, individuals, organization and nation. Once you basically select the control, you need to implement the control. So purpose of implementation of step is to implement the control in the security and privacy plan and organization and document the baseline configuration, the specific detail of the control implementation. So once you basically implement the control, we're going to assess the control. So VAPT audit is part of this particular activity. Now what is the important part you need to understand is ultimate goal of the assessment is to verify whether control is working effectively as per the plan. Okay, you can see the purpose of assessment is to produce the desired outcome with respect to satisfy the security and privacy requirement. So it's a very important step. So in my further slide, I'm going to discuss what is the important element you need to remember in the assess step. Once you basically does the audit, once you're done with the VAPT, you will prepare the report, and that report you will submit to the management. Sir, this is the product and this is the result. Do let me know, will you accept this product or not? So management, when they accept the product, you need to also understand they're accepting all the risk associated with the product. Let me give one best example. See, when ISC2 verify your application, okay, they verify all the details before they issue a certificate. Okay, when ISC2 basically verify all the information before issuing a certificate. The reason why tomorrow you become a particular certified and ISC2 name is associated with you, and tomorrow if you involved in any kind of an activity, it is a name which is compromise of the ISC2. Same like when you accepting any application or accepting any system in the organization, you accepting all the risk associated with that. Understood? So that is why it is very important that, okay, you will assess all the risk before we implementing. So authorization is all about accepting a product along with the associated risk which is there in the product. Okay, another term, it is also called as a accreditation. And once you accept and start using the system in the organization, you will also need to do the monitoring. So monitoring step is to maintain the ongoing, you can say ongoing situational awareness about the security and privacy posture of the information system, and also we'll see how it can basically align with the risk management decisions. So the first step is prepare, where you discuss the meetings and everything. Then you categorize the system, because it is not possible for me to give attention to all the asset with the same level. So we categorize the system, then we basically select the controls, then we implement the control, then we assess the control to check the effectiveness, and then we authorize the system to be used in the production, and then we monitor. Okay, so we will going to discuss with the case study. Okay, so let's take example. We have a company called Aspirants. So Aspirants is basically seeking to improve its cybersecurity posture and ensure the compliance with the federal mandate, because as I said, RMF is mostly used in a DoD and federal. So with that reference, we're taking this example. As a NIST GRC consultant, I will support the XYZ in implementing the NIST SP 837 RMF with the following steps. Okay, so we need to implement the RMF 837 in the Aspirants company. Okay, so the first step, as I said, prepare step, right? So in prepare step, we have all the 7 tasks. See, from the exam point of view, it is very important for you to know what is the task happen in each phases. So example, in prepare step, prepare itself is divided in 2 parts. One is organization level, and one is basically called as a individual system level, organization level and system level. So prepare step is divided into 2 parts. One is called as a organization level, and one is basically called a system level. Okay, so we'll start with the organization first, which have a 7 tasks, and then we have a further system task. So as I said, prepare step, they say first risk management role. Definitely, in order to identify any risk, first we need to identify who will does that. So we have to identify the individuals, okay, and we need to assign the key role for executing the RMF. So if I join as a company and I want to improve the cybersecurity posture of the aspirants, okay, so first step is basically I will identify who will do what. Then second step, once we identify there is a guy, a GRC guy who will do this. Suppose we have identified Prabh. Okay, so they have identified Prabh is a GRC consultant. He will basically implement the governance in the organization. So for him, the second step is basically risk management strategy, which include about determination and expression of organization risk tolerance. And we establish the risk tolerance in this particular step. Then we basically start with the organization level risk assessment. Okay, where we're doing an organization wide risk assessment and update the strategy accordingly. And according to that, we basically finalize what controls are required. Okay, so that is called as a task P4. P stand for prepare. Okay, then we identify the controls, and based on the impact level, okay, we basically prioritize and then we implement. Okay, so that is basically part of that. Now this is the organization level. Then we basically move to system level. Okay, so system level, so this is part of like a governance and this is like a management. Okay, so system level, it's not about computer system mean process. Okay, so we need to first identify missions, okay, that system is intended to support. Then we need to identify stakeholder who support the business. Let's take example, we have a change management process, that's a business. We need to identify who is the change management lead who support the process. Then I will basically identify the assets. It's very important for me to identify the assets. Okay, then I will define the boundary. This is the scope that I want to manage. So that is basically called as an authorization boundary. Then I need to see what type of information we have in the boundary. What is the life cycle? So create, store, use, share, archive, destroy we have. And then we start with the risk assessment of the change management process. I will document the requirement and then I will basically adopt the enterprise architecture, which help me to connect all the blocks. Okay, so that is another important part. And then we have a requirement allocation. What is the requirement to protect the system? And according to that, we register the system. So system is registered for the purpose of management, okay, and accountability, coordination, oversight we have. So there will be a pointer can be asked is in which particular stage we register the system. Okay, so answer is basically prepare stage only. So in summary, we can see we establish the GRC team in this step. We compose the member of IT security. Then we define the roles and responsibility. Okay, then we develop the strategy and then we allocate the resource to support the strategy on a high level. So once you basically register a system that now the system is a part of a process, then the next thing is basically we need to categorize. Okay, so we need to categorize. So categorize step is basically inform the organization risk management process and tasks by determining the adverse impact to the organization operations and assets, individual and other organization. And I don't know, okay, we have a change management process, we have a patch management process, we have a BCP as a process. So we need to categorize what is important, what is not. So here what you need to understand is first, for this categorization task, first I need to document what system we have. Okay, and then second is basically we categorize that system. Okay, so in categorization, we basically including what kind of information will process by the system. Okay, and this result are documented in the security plan, privacy plan and SCRM plan. Okay, so that is basically part of the function. Then security categorization should be result are consistent with the, you can say, enterprise architecture, and it should be reflect in the organization risk management strategy. And the third task is basically we need to get an approval from the management. So here the senior leaders in the organization will approve that. Now what is very, very important here? Okay, what is very, very important here is while you categorizing a system, okay, how to categorize? Understood? You need to identify, categorize the information system, right? So you need to categorize according to the impact analysis. So this can be the pointer, very, very important. So we categorize a system based on an impact analysis. What is the meaning? Okay, for me, the BCP is important over change management. For me, patch management is important over incident management, because we know if incident management is basically down, it has a big impact. So here the categorization done based on an impact analysis on confidentiality, integrity and availability. So we are using two type of categorization is very, very important for you to understand. Remember, very, very important. So when you categorizing, there is a framework we are using based on which we categorizing. So one we have is called FIPS 200, which using a high water mark method. It is applicable for the system other than national security system. So example, like I have a private company in US and we have adopted the NIST RMF. So I am in a private company, I will use FIPS 200 and according to that I will categorize. But if I'm working for the national security systems, there according to CNSSI 1253, we basically apply. So it is an application for nation security system. So this is the very, very important pointer you need to know from exam point of view. So we have a two way to categorize. One is FIPS 200, which is basically used for all apart from national security system. And second is basically called as a CNSI 1253, which is applicable for the national security system. And this security categorization process carried by the system owner, that is also very important for you to understand, because there is a possibility can be framed in this way that they can ask you about, okay, who categorized the system? Okay, so system owner is very important here. Okay, so during the categorize process, we categorize a system. So now we have categorized the system. We have a change management process, we have a BCP process. Now what next? I need to apply the controls. Controls can be my physical control, technical control, and administrative control. So purpose of select task is to select the control. Let's take example. Okay, so I have a NIST. Okay, I have a NIST standard, I have a ISO standard. I can take some control from NIST, I can take some control from ISO. So this is basically called as a scoping. Selection of a control from a standard is called as a scoping. Okay, here you need to remember the control we are taking from NIST 853. Remember that. Okay, so 53 is basically the control reference we are using to categorize system or defining a controls. Okay, so 853 is basically the control standard we have. Okay, we are using to implement the control. So selection of a control from the 853 is called as a scoping, and modify slightly to meet your business objective, that is called tailoring. So scoping and tailoring here we have. So in the select task, we basically select the control. So control based on necessary to protect the system. Then we basically tailor it as per the business objective. Here the control are designated as system specific control, hybrid control, and common control. Very, very important for you to understand, and very, very important for your exam preparation. You must know what are the type of control allocation we have. We have a system specific, we have a hybrid, and we have a common control. In my next video, I will discuss that because there's a lot to cover. Okay, but it's very important for you to understand in which particular stage we do the control allocation and what kind of a controls are designated here. System specific, hybrid, and common control. Then once we categorize, we document the controls. Okay, and then once you implement, we assess and based on that, we basically submit for an approval. Now, when we're talking about the control implementation, as I said, this is the NISC 853. So we have total, I forget that 17 or something we have control. So here, when you're talking about 3 approach for implementing control, one is called common control. Okay, second is called as a system specific control, and third is called as a hybrid control. You can see here, system specific, hybrid, and common. So there are 3 ways to implement the control. Common control, okay, which we implement. Then we have a system specific control, and then sometimes we have a hybrid. And these is the control family we have that we need to remember. Okay, that's a very important part. So for your more information, we have a 20 families here, 20 family. Okay, there will be a possibility can be asked is which of the following is not a family of control. So it's very important, just have a high level visibility what are the family of control we have. Is it clear? So now when you're talking about control, so control is basically viewed as a description of a safeguard. Okay, and controls are selected, implemented by the organization to satisfy the system requirement actually. So we do the risk assessment and risk tolerance. So based on a risk assessment and risk tolerance, we basically determine the value of the control. Okay, value of the control. So if you take a system specific control, so system specific control are the primary responsibility of the system owner. So this is the point you need to remember. So system owner and the authorizing official, okay, they are the one who basically responsible for that. So implementing a system specific control can introduce a risk if the control implementation are not interoperable with the common controls. So organization in that case implement the control as a hybrid. If one part of the control is common, then other part is system specific. So that is called as a hybrid. So sometimes we basically go for that kind of a controls. That's why we call it as a hybrid. Okay. So that is the most important part. Then we basically move to the implementation stage. So purpose of the implement step is to implement the control in the security privacy plan for the system, for the organization, and document the baseline configuration. So it is a step where we implement the control and we update the control. So question is, in which particular stage we basically update the control? Answer is implementation step. Second is security privacy plan. Include what? It basically include the list of controls that we are implementing in the organization. So security privacy plan are updated based on the information obtained during the implementation. Now, once you basically implement the control, you have to assess the effectiveness of the control. Make sure you should provide the evidence whether control is basically working correctly as per the requirement. Okay, it is working as per the operation, and more important, it basically producing the result as per the requirement. So during this step, it's very important. The assessment plan is basically we create using a, you can say 853A, and we carry out all the assessment and prepare the result. That's why we have a assessor selection. So in this step, we first need to select the assessor. This is a very, very important part. When you're selecting an assessor, make sure the level of independence should be there. Because if you're hiring assessor from the same team, he will definitely support his team only, right? So make sure assessor will be from a different team and he basically free from all the issues and he will doing an assessment with the independent approach. Then once the assessor has been selected, he will prepare the assessment plan. So assessment plan basically we develop, okay, and it will be established the expectation of a control assessment. Then based on that, we do the control assessment where we're doing a VAPT, audits and all that. By this, we always prefer to do the automation. This is the very, very important statement. You need to know what is the best way to do the assessment, automation or manual. Automation is always best because it will do the things in a more faster manner. But automation basically required one parameter which is called uniformity. Until unless you don't have a uniformity of the configuration, automation will not work. So automation is basically highly preferred. They can ask in this way, what is the reason of automation? Because it maximizes to increase the speed. Okay, it basically improve the effectiveness and it also improve the efficiency of assessment. And once you're done with the assessment, you prepare the report, which is called a security privacy assessment report. Now here, don't get confused. First, we're creating a security assessment plan. Okay. Based on a plan, we're basically creating a security assessment report. Okay, so report is basically include the finding, okay, recommendation, action plan. Remember that in the security assessment report, we basically include the finding. What is the finding we have discovered? Okay, what is your recommendation as a GRC consultant? Okay, an action plan will be prepared by the auditee. Okay, so that is part of SS. Along with that, we also in the SS, we have a task 5 is called remediate actions. So security privacy plan are updated to reflect the control implementation change based on the, because security privacy plan. So three plans are there. Security privacy plan in which we have a list of control that we need to implement. Security assessment plan talk about how to assess, and security assessment report talk about the current control effectiveness. So after doing a security assessment and whatever that suggestion you have given, based on that, we need to update the control. And once you update the control, you update the security privacy plan also. Okay, so that's a very important part. And then we also have a plan of action milestone. So plan of action milestone talk about the remediation plan for unacceptable risk. Okay, and your plan of action is basically include as a part of authorization package, because this is the final thing that you submit to the system owner and authorization officials. Example, like my customer is basically ABC. So I will submit the application and I will submit the authorization package to him. So when he accept the product, it means he accept all the risks. So accepting product means accepting the authorization package. Is it clear? So that's basically the very important thing you need to understand. So in the plan of action, we basically include the actions that are planned to correct. We talk about the deficiencies, which is accepted by the authorizing official, because authorizing official is the one who accept the package. Okay. We talk about the deficiency identified during an assessment that need to be documented, and organization basically plan of actions and milestones based on the result. So all those things is basically part of an authorization package. Now, once we're done with the authorization package, we move to the authorization step, which provide the organization accountability by requiring a senior management official to determine if security privacy risk to the organization operation assets are within acceptable level. So how we basically show them this acceptable level? So there is a concept we called as a authorization package. Okay, so there is a concept called as a authorization package. Authorization package. Okay, so we basically assemble the authorization package. So authorization package is developed for submission to the AO. So AO approve the AO, it means accepting the application. And now tomorrow any risk associated with the application will be accepted by the machine, accepted by the company. Now this package include what actually? So this package include the security and privacy plan. Security and privacy plan. This package basically include the security privacy report, security and privacy assessment report. And third, it basically include the plan of action. I repeat again, this package is basically include the security privacy plan. It basically include the security privacy assessment report. It include the plan of actions, and more important, it basically include the executive summary. It's very important for you to know each and everything, because this is part of an authorization package and this is submit to the AO, authorization official, like he's my customer. Accepting this package, it means he aware about everything about the product or about the process. Is it clear? So when we're talking about here, risk analysis, so we determine the risk which influence the function, and then we have a risk response. Now coming to the risk response team, it's very, very important for you to know in which condition we accept the risk. Okay. In which condition we mitigate, in which condition we avoid, in which condition we transfer. Very, very important for you to understand. So there is a one detailed video I made on that. Okay. So in which condition we accept, when the cost of control is higher than cost of impact, or the cost of opportunity is basically higher than cost of risk. So we accept. Mitigate is reduce risk to an acceptable level. Insurance, cyber insurance, remember answer is risk transfer. We drop the business. We don't want to continue because risk impact is high. It's going beyond the capacity, we avoid. So there's a dedicated coffee shot I made on the CISSP base. So you can refer that also. So risk response will be provided, and then we here decide the authorization. So AO will be then approved by the authorization official, which is a board. Okay, so AO review the package and make the risk-based decision. This is also very important. Based on what decision they take, he make a risk-based decision. Okay, so that's basically the important part we have. And based on that, we produce the report. Now, here what happened is when you're talking about this authorization process, the task number 4, it is not necessary, okay, you always accept. Okay, I submit the report about the product. Now it's up to them. They want to accept the risk associated with the product and accept the product, or they want to withdraw. So we have a different type of authorization, and it is very, very important from the exam perspective. So we have a initial authorization, which is startup. Then we have a ongoing authorization, which is a follow-up. And we have a reauthorization, which is static and single point of time. Okay, I will discuss in a further slide. Now, what is included in the content of the authorization package? Executive summary. Okay, security privacy assessment plan, security privacy assessment report, and plan of action milestone. So that is basically included in the authorization package. Now, if you ask me what is basically included in the executive summary basically provide the consolidated view of security and privacy information in the authorization package, high level. Okay, security privacy plan basically provide the, you can say, overview of security privacy requirement and describe the control in place. And security privacy assessment report, okay, is basically which is prepared by the control assessor. Remember, from the preparation perspective, it is a thing which is prepared by the control assessor, which is an auditor and all that. Okay, control assessor. Okay, and generated with the help of tool which provide the finding and result of the assessment, the implementation of a control and all that. Okay, and produce a desired outcome. And plan of action is basically describe the measure plan to correct the deficiencies which is identified in the control during an assessment. Is it clear? So it's very important for you to understand each and every information which is in the package. So as I said, we have a 4 type of authorization decisions. Very, very important. Okay, authorization decisions are based on the content of authorization package. Okay, content is this. So based on the content, we decide the authorization. So we have a 4 type of authorization. One authorization is called as authorization to operate. It means I accept it and will continue. Second is called as a common control authorization, which is basically reviewed by common control provider who then authorize the common control. Then we have an authorization to use. It means it is granted by AO. We can use in the system. And denial of authorization means authorization is not given. Okay, so that is basically called as a type of authorization decision. Okay, an authorization decision is transmitted from authorization official to system owner, control provider, and other key organization officials. Is it clear? An authorization decision indicate if the system or controller authorized to provide and inherit by the organization system. Now, authorization decision information we have. When we authorize something, it has some requirements. So terms and condition. Okay, sometimes we have a time-driven authorization frequencies. Sometimes we have an event that may trigger to review the authorization decisions. And we have a common control. Example, like I prepare the product and I basically submit the product for authorization. That is the first condition. Sometimes what happen, post-COVID, there's a change in the governance process. So it's a time-driven authorization frequency, or it's a event-based authorization frequency. And sometimes what happen, because of common control impact level supported by this control, for that we basically have a authorization decision information. Now, once we're done with that, we move to the next part, which is called as a monitor. Here we're talking about system and environment change. Okay, we basically do the continuous level of assessment. So question can be asked, or preparation can be asked in this way, is how we do the assessment. So we start with the organization level and then we move to system level. Whenever doing an assessment by the assessor, there should be a degree of independence should be there. Very, very important. What is a primary advantage of using an automation assessment? Because of the frequency, volume and coverage. Because if you go by the manual assessment, it takes time. Okay, and with the help of assessment, we can able to implement the cost effective solution. Now, next thing is basically ongoing response, just to make sure the risk is within acceptable level. So that is also we try to validate. And then we have a authorization package update. Based on that, we update the authorization package. Now here, this is very important. So as I said in the monitoring, we do some assessment. Okay. It's a very important part. Okay. I want you to give attention to this particular part. So when we're talking about assessment, so we follow a procedure by which we provide the uniformity. Okay. So in the procedure, we have a assessment objectives. Okay. With the associate set of assessment method and assessment objects. Okay. So any assessment you choose basically have a several method and object to assess. Okay. And sometimes we use a possible combination. So assessment objects and method section provide the useful guide in developing and executing the assessment against any system. Okay. So first we're going to discuss about assessment objects. What we're going to assess. So it identify the specific item being assessed, include S stand for specification, M stand for mechanism, A stand for activity, I stand for individual. Short form is SMAI. Okay. So for information, you can refer the standard called 853A. And if you want to make another videos on this, we can do that. Just for a reference, specification basically documented based artifacts like assessing the policy, procedure, plan, system security requirement. Second is called as a mechanism. Mechanism is basically specific hardware, software, firmware safeguard. Activity is basically like a specific protection, like, network traffic monitoring and all that. And individual is basically mean a people applying the specification, mechanism and activity. Okay. Now assessment, we have a method also. So we have a method like a attribute base, which is called depth, what depth you want to do, which is called rigor, and what is the scope. Very, very important for you to understand. These are the two type of attributes we have by which we do the assessment, like what is the level of depth you want to do, detail, and what is the scope. Okay. And then overall finding is to how many type. That is also very important for you to know, either satisfy or other than non-satisfy. So assessment objective includes a set of determination statement, and assessment finding reflect to help determine the overall effectiveness of the control. So that's a very important part. Okay. So assessment procedure is very important. Then we basically move to the monitor. Okay. The last part. So monitor, we are still in the same domain. So monitor is basically where we do a three type of monitoring. Very, very important for you to understand. One is called event driven monitoring. Something happen or as per the schedule, or sometimes it's a combination. So there can be a knowledge you need to understand is what kind of a security posture review we have. So we have a event driven review, we have a time driven review, and sometimes we have a event and time driven review. Okay. Best is basically event and time driven. Okay. So security posture report are marked, protect and handle according to the policy. This is also very important statement you need to know, because report is basically include the confidential information. And then based on that, we decide that do we need to go for ongoing authorizations. So that is basically there. So we review the risk tolerance, reports, plan of actions, and based on that, we take a call that, is it authorized to operate or ongoing authorization, common control authorizations and all that. And if when asset is not in use, we basically dispose a system. Okay. So these are the basically steps we have. Now there are some golden principle you need to know from CGRC mindset. First, when you refer the NIST document 837, you will find in every stage this one, input output. So it's very important for you to know how the input output works. Okay. Task in every step phase is very, very important. Second is common control we always promote, because by the common control, you can promote the standardization, consistent and cost effective when you're selecting a control. Maximize the use of a cloud-based system services, because let's take an example. You did the assessment of one system. So you can use the same system for further business also, because again, if you're going for the new system, again, you need to go for a new assessment and all that, which is basically expensive. Always start with the organization tailor control baseline to increase the speed of security and privacy plan. And it basically also promote the consistency, because when you're having a common standard based on which you define the control, you can follow across the organization. And always employ organization defined control based on a security privacy requirement. So very important for you to understand here is based on the organization define or based on the security privacy requirement, implement the control or select the control. And maximum if possible use automations. Okay, so that is basically the important part. Decrease the level of efforts and resource expenditure for the low impact system. Okay, maximize the reuse of RMF artifact, like if we already did the security privacy assessment results, reuse that for the further business. Reduce the complexity of IT infrastructure, make it sure you should have a visibility. Okay, and it should be configured with the least functions. Make the approach to reduce the, you can say, cost and increase the efficiency. And more important, how you basically optimize that visibility is important. So like the way in CISSP we have a golden principle, in CGRC we also have some golden principles. Okay, now in CGRC we also talk about SDLC. Okay, so in which step of SDLC what activity happen, like prepare step during, according to SDLC, is the initiation happen. During a categorization we have a initiation. Okay, during a SDLC development acquisition we have a select phase. During a development acquisition implementation we have a implement stage. Okay, assessment is done in the development acquisition implementation assessment. Authorization is implement assessment where we accept the product, and monitor is basically called as a operation maintenance disposal phase. So that is basically the requirement we have. Now another important thing, you need to understand the roles. Very, very important for you. If you want to clear the exam, you need to have a very good clarity about authorization officials and authorization official designated representative. Now what you need to understand here is, when we're talking about AODR, second AODR, he can do or she can do anything on behalf of AO except authorizing the application, authorizing the system. He cannot or she cannot authorize. Apart from that, all the activity can be delegated to AODR, but apart from that, they cannot approve anything. So when it comes to last but authorization package basically means they're accepting the product. So that does not have authority with AODR. Apart from that, everything done by the AODR. You need to have a very good understanding of a control assessor, risk executive, system owner, and system security privacy officer. In this exam, it is very important for you to know the FIPS pointer, like FIPS 1402, which is used for cryptography module. You just need to know this high level. FIPS 199 standard for security, you just need to know this level, and FIPS 200, which is a minimum requirement for the Federal Information and Information System. Okay, which is used, and we also use the process to categorize a function, but high level you need to know. You don't need to read in detail. Okay, example like you want to go for a cryptography module solutions. What is the ideal standard based on which you assess the cryptography module? FIPS 1402. Okay, you categorize system according to FIPS 199. Okay, because we're categorizing any system based on 199 and 200. Okay, so it's very important for you to know the 800. So your primary document should be 837. Okay, there's a Mango guide, a very good guide. Okay, so I will share that in a description box. This is basically was my last week summary. Week before the exam, I was reviewing the Mango guide only. And NIST SP 853 revision 5. So only refer the chapter 1 and chapter 2. And if you're going for secondary document, you can review the CBK domain, especially chapter 3 and chapter 5. Old CBK is there of CAP. And NIST 853, which is called chapter 1 and chapter 2. You don't need to go in detail. Some of the process understanding required, how the SOC 2 work, how the change management process work. Okay, configuration management process, PCA DSS high level, never store CVV number, FedRAMP usage, joint authorization, what is ISO 15403, common criteria. Okay, risk management process, especially risk treatment, transfer, avoidance, mitigation. So you need to have a very good understanding about this process. And my suggestion is that review the audit report. What is the content in the audit report? You can review that. Okay. So let's practice some questions so you get a visibility how, the question can be framed in CGRC. Okay. Okay. So first question. Organization is in a process of selecting a cryptography module. First keyword, cryptography module. for its secure communication system. The system is intended for a use in a highly sensitive yet diverse operation environment that necessitates adherence to the strict security policies and standard. The organization aimed to ensure that selected cryptography module meet a specific security requirement across the various qualitative levels, accommodating a broad spectrum of application environment. Which of the following standard must the organization focus to ensure cryptography modules satisfy the desired security specification? See, if you see FIPS 1402, it is basically designed to certify the cryptography modules which providing a structure range of security level 1 to 4 that address the, you can say, different applications environment need. FIPS 200 is basically a broad scope of minimum security requirement for federal information but does not specifically focus on qualitative level of cryptography modules. ISO 27000 is a standard for managing information security, and 853 is basically talk about the controls, a set of security and privacy controls. So from that point of view, answer is basically A. Second question. In the process of system authorization within the organization, authorization official communicates a crucial decision to system owner or common control provider along with the other relevant organization officials. Which of the following best describe the comprehensive element included in the authorization decisions as conveyed by the AO to the system owner? Option A, only detailed risk assessment report and residual risk acceptance sign off by the risk management team without specifying the authorization duration condition, which is wrong because we have a other type of risk treatment and it is not necessary only detailed risk assessment we have a security assessment report, security assessment plan and everything. Option B, security categorization information system and list of all security controls implement without detailing the term of operation of system impact level supported by the common control. Actually it include that. Option C, general acknowledgement of a system security readiness without specifying terms, conditions or any input from the senior accountable officials for the risk management. Actually it include the security assessment plan, security assessment report, and it is not only talking about readiness. Option D, terms and condition for authorization to operate makes sense. Authorization termination makes sense. Date or time of time driven authorization frequency. Input from a senior accountable officials for risk management and risk executive. So close answer is basically D, because it directly reflects the content provided detailing the comprehensive elements that are included in the authorization decisions. Next, an authorization package is critical for documenting the security privacy posture of the information system before it is authorized for the operation within the organization. This package provides the comprehensive overview including the assessment and plan for managing risk and ensuring the compliance. Which of the following element is not typically included in the authorization package? So if you ask me, executive summary is part of that, security privacy plan included in that, security privacy report is there, business case is not there, we have a plan of action and milestone. So answer is basically business case. Is it clear? Next question. In the realm of security and privacy assessment, understanding the type of object being assessed is crucial for comprehensive evaluation. So assessment object provide the foundational element that are scrutinized to ensure they meet the required security privacy standard. Based on this definition, the assessment object identify the specific item being assessed. Which of the following is not considered the type of assessment objects? Option is specification, which is there. Mechanism we have. Activity we have. We don't have a information. Okay, so that is the reason the answer is basically D for delta. Okay. Is it clear? So that is basically part of the function, because it includes the individual. Now coming back to the resource part, let me open that. It is very, very important to read the NIST 800, 837. That will be your primary document. Mango guide will be the last week revision, and NIST SP 853. It's good to review from chapter 1, chapter 2 because it helps you to understand with the control implementation. Is it clear? So do let me know how do you find this particular video, and do let me know, shall I make more questions on CGRC and any other video you want me to make. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss the future videos on a similar topic. Good day. Bye.